For Chanukah, Guten Chodesh. We are learning Mishna Yevamos, Paragimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Beis, Mishnah 2. Now, in order for us to be able to get a better grasp on what's going to happen, I've given you a chart. Please take your chart. Okay? Now, if you look on the chart, and for those of you online, I don't know how well you could see it, okay, but just look at the very top line right now. Okay, the very top line. The situation is you have two sisters, Rachel and Leah, and they are each married to two brothers. But the total amount of brothers in this story are four. You've got four brothers, and two brothers are married to two sisters. Remember that? Now, in yesterday's Mishnah, we learned that in case the husbands die, which are Reuven and Yehuda, if Reuven and Yehuda die, the surviving brothers, Levi and Shimon, cannot do Yibum, because even though both women were married to their brothers, and both women definitely have a Yibum connection to both brothers, but because they are sisters, it comes out that each one is the sister of the woman connected to you for Yibum. Each one is connected to you for Yibum, and each one is the sister of the one connected to you for Yibum, because they were both married to your brothers. There's no fakers here, there's no doubts here, there's no questions here. They're definitely married to two brothers. And therefore, yesterday's Mishnah, we learned that the two surviving brothers will not be able to do Yibam. They could only do Chalitza. Now, in today's Mishnah, the scenario is the following, which is the top section of the chart. So you're starting off the same way. You're starting off with four brothers, two married to two sisters, right? But in today's Mishnah, the point is like this. If you notice, I have an arrow from Rachel down to a circle named Dinah. Okay? Dinah is the daughter of Rachel. Mm-hmm. Dinah is married to one of the brothers. She's married to Shimon. Mm-hmm. Okay? Which therefore makes Rachel to Shimon his niece. Mother-in-law. Okay? It makes it his mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. Because Shimon is married to Dinah, the daughter of Rachel. Mm-hmm. So Rachel is not only his sister-in-law married to his brother, it's also his mother-in-law. Now, we have learned previously that if your brother's wife is an erva to you, is one of the women who is forbidden to you to cohabit with would carry a punishment of death, she's called an erva, and she falls to, and your brother dies without children, is there any connection of Yibum that you have to that woman who's an erva after your brother's death? The answer is no, none whatsoever. She goes completely free. Remember that? That was the beginning of Yevamos. That if the woman if your sister-in-law who falls to you for Yibum is an erva to you, like your mother-in-law, like your daughter, like many other examples that we had, then there is no Yibum connection whatsoever, and she goes free without chalitza. Okay? So now, looking at this scenario, which is the top part of the chart. Now go to the middle part. In the middle part, what happens? We don't have the husbands anymore. We don't have Yehuda and Reuven anymore because they died, and they died without children. Now, if we examine what's going to happen now, if we take a look now at, okay, let's talk about, in our case, okay, Rachel was Shimon's mother-in-law, right? The connection between the two was that Rachel is his mother-in-law. So now that Rachel's husband died, and now she falls to Yibam to his surviving brothers. But in regard to Shimon, she's an erva, because it's his mother-in-law. And therefore, if it's his mother-in-law, there is no connection. There is no connection between Rachel and Shimon. No connection whatsoever. There is a connection between Shimon and Leah, because Leah is not an erva to him, like I have their connection. And when it comes to Levi is connected to both Rachel and Leah for Yibam, because none of them are an erva to him. Okay? So now what happens is like this. The Mishnah is going to tell us in this middle case that actually, okay, so both the Rachel and Leah's husbands died. They were his brothers. But again, if you remember, as we have in the chart, Rachel is Shimon's mother-in-law. So that means there is no Yibam connection from Rachel to Shimon whatsoever. There's no connection. So if Shimon wants to now go ahead and do Yibam and Leah, is there any problem? No, because Leah is not the sister of the woman who has a connection to Yibam for him, because the sister doesn't have. When it comes to Rachel and Leah, in regard to Shimon, there's only one of them who has Yibam connection. That's Leah, not Rachel. And therefore, if Shimon wants to do Yibam on Leah, there's no problem. It is his sister-in-law because she was married to his brother, and she's not the sister of the woman connected to him for Yibam, because her sister Rachel isn't connected to Shimon because it's his mother-in-law. So therefore, the Mishnah is going to tell us if Shimon wants, he can do Yibam on Leah. But if we look at the other brother, Levi, who's still connected to both Rachel and Leah, because they were both his brothers who died, he cannot do Yibam on any of them because of the fact that each one is a sister of the woman connected to him for Yibam. Okay, that's the middle case. Now, the bottom case is where a situation is that you have, again, let's call it Rachel and Shimon. So Rachel and Shimon have a connection, but it's not an erva connection. It's a situation where Shimon can't marry Rachel. Let's say the reason Shimon can't marry Rachel is because Shimon's brother is married to Rachel, which in our case was Reuven, was a mamzer. It was his brother from his father, but he was a mamzer. And Rachel's a mamzeres, so they were allowed to get married. But now when he dies without children, it's a mamzeres falling to Shimon, and, no, that's the case not going to work. All right, I knew how to make some kind of mistake. If some mamzer is not going to work, because then it should go both ways. Right. We'll have to think of a case, but the third case is going to be where, all right. Let's say the case is like this. Let's say the case is, the point is that in this third situation, this third scenario, Rachel and Shimon cannot marry. But they can't marry because of a circumstance that we had before. She's an erva midrabanan. She's a relative that can't be married midrabanan to him. Okay? Or let's say for some reason there was a prohibition of a lav, of a Torah's prohibition between Rachel and Shimon, and not between Rachel and Levi. Let's say the case was they were all Kohanim. And Shimon was a Kohen Gadol. Okay? So the woman who is now married to Rachel was, let's say, a widow or divorcee from previously. She was a widow from previously. And now when she falls to Yibam, she cannot fall to Yibam she can't fall to Yibam to Shimon, because Shimon's a Kohen Gadol, can't marry a widow, but she can marry Levi. The point is that in the third scenario, the reason why Rachel and Shimon cannot get married is not because they're an erva to each other, but there's some prohibition that doesn't allow them to get married. Does not apply to the third brother. When there is only a prohibition that doesn't allow you to get married, then we say the halach is as we had previously. There's a Yibam connection, but you can't marry. So what do you got to do then? You got to do a chalitza. And therefore, it doesn't make a difference about the fact. So now again, we're coming back to a situation where each one can't do Yibam because of the fact that, again, even though Rachel can't marry Shimon, but she has a connection of Yibam to him. And therefore, since there's still a connection, Leah is the sister of the woman connected to him. And therefore, you can't do Yibam. So let's read the Mishnah now. Okay? So, Haisa, this is Mishnah Beis. Haisa achas mehen asura la'echad isser erva. If in the scenario we had before of the brothers and the two sisters, that one of the sisters was an erva to one of the brothers. So, asur ba, that brother is forbidden to do Yibam on her, and she can actually go free. She's also to do Yibam on her, but her sister is permissible, because her sister is no more the sister of the woman connected to him for Yibam, because that erva has no Yibam connection to him. The other brother is forbidden in both, because each one has fallen to him to Yibam, and therefore each one is the sister of the woman connected to him for Yibam. But if, let's say, one of them was Isser Mitzvah Isser Kedusha, one of them was prohibited to marry because of a mitzvah, which we said means she's Asr because she is rabbinically forbidden, and it's a mitzvah to listen to the words of the sages, Visser Kedusha, or she was a prohibition in order to preserve the sanctity of a Kohen, or she's forbidden for any other reason that would be a prohibition, not an erva, but prohibition, that applies only to one sister, not to the other, then the halacha is, then that woman cannot only gets chalitz and not yibam. It's not possible for anyone to do yibam on her, because again, she is the sister of the one connected to she's a sister of the one connected to you for Yibam. And being that she's not an erva, she doesn't just go scot-free. She's still connected to you for Yibam. And therefore, both of these women are not only falling to you for Yibam because they're married to your brother, but to the sister of the one who fell to you for Yibam. And therefore, both of them, you cannot do Yibam on them. You have to do Chalitza. Okay. Now, so now we're talking about how, if let's say, based on the way the Rambam gives the parameters for what's called Lashon Hara, if you're going to go ahead and you're going to you're going to speak about a lack of equality to someone, that could and that would cause him some kind of a loss or distress, that would be Lashon Hara. So now he goes back into his first example. We're talking about, you're saying about someone that they're not so smart, they're not so wise. If you say about a person he's not wise, is it going to negatively affect him? It certainly will. There is no greater lack of equality than that. If he's not married yet, if people start hearing he's not so bright, he's not so smart, as we say, his elevator doesn't make it to the top floor, then he's not. No one's going to want to marry him. If he's got some kind of a business, he's got some kind of a profession. He's got a craft. He's a teacher. Why would you want to hire a person to teach your child who's not very smart? Or why would you want to hire a professional who's really not very wise and not very and doesn't have it all together? Or the more so, let's say he is a rabbi. Let's say he's someone who teaches Torah to other people. He's a person who gives guidance, who gives halacha guidance. And you say about him, he doesn't know that much. Now, if people hear about the rabbi, he's not so smart, he's not so wise, that for sure, if people hear about it, it could cause him a loss of his livelihood. Why? Because one of the ways that a rabbi, or let's say a judge, made a living was because people had any kind of issue to deal with, they came for him for guidance to be able to answer their question. And he got paid for it. He did a service, he got paid for it. But if no one wants to go to him because he's not that smart, then he's going to lose his livelihood. Right? And the next step could be is that if it comes out that people don't think he's so smart, they're going to say, we didn't need a rabbi, he's not so smart. And they're going to get rid of him and he's going to lose his parnasa completely. Or not only lose the parnasa completely, by lowering the status of the rabbi in their eyes, they're not going to go in for guidance and they're going to lose out spiritually. They're going to lose out from their Judaism because of that. And therefore, clearly, if you're dealing with a situation of saying about a person that they're not wise, in many situations that they're going to find themselves, it's really going to be a problem. Because as the Rambam says, if it causes any kind of damage or hurt to a person, that is Lashon Hara. Have a wonderful day and a Freilich and Chanukah. Good and Chaydish.